Hey guys, I'm a urology resident. Let's talk about reconstructive procedures for the bladder. There are many reasons where a bladder might need to be reconstructed or entirely removed due to cancerous or non-cancerous reasons. So in this video, I'm going to go over some ways we offer a substitute for the bladder. And while we have generic guidelines on which procedures to do for whom, every individual is unique and this can vary. It's all about shared decision making. First, let's go over some anatomy. You have two kidneys. Those kidneys make urine and they dump into these two tubes called the ureters that then hook into the bladder. So when you remove the bladder entirely, you need to hook those ureters into something that will either continuously drain urine or store urine. So let's talk about our first option, the ileal conduit. This is where we take a piece of intestine, we separate it from the rest of the bowel, we maintain that blood supply, and then we pull that intestine through a hole in the abdomen. As mentioned previously, the ureters are then hooked up to that continuous drainage conduit. It's called a conduit for a reason. It is continuous drainage. So patients have to have a pouch around their conduit at all times. They'll empty that bag once the bag fills with urine. Now let's talk about a bladder augment. This is usually done when the bladder loses its elasticity or its stretchiness. When the bladder loses its stretchiness, it builds up a lot of pressure that can then shoot up the urine back to the kidneys that then cause kidney damage. So you need something that's going to give it that stretchiness. You can do a lot of conservative procedures that may try to restore that stretchiness to the bladder, but ultimately they may need an augment. So similarly as before, you take a part of the bowels, you separate it from the rest of the intestines, you maintain the blood supply, you essentially splay it out like you're opening up a cannoli, and then you sew it on to the bladder. Here, you may not have to hook up the ureters because you're only removing part of the bladder. You're not removing all the bladder. But that may not be the case for our next contestant, the neobladder. When somebody wants to take the whole bladder out, but they still want the opportunity to void through their urethra, a neobladder may be an option. Same idea, you take bowel, separate it from the rest of the bowel, maintain the blood supply, splay it open. Many different ways to reconstruct and create a cute little pouch. That gets hooked up to your urethra, and then your ureters get hooked up to that pouch. Some people can pee on their own, some people are incontinent, but a lot of people will need a catheter still to remove any leftover urine even after they have attempted to pee. Now our last option is a continent reservoir. Essentially you do the same things that you did to create a pouch like you did with the neobladder. But this time you take a segment of the intestines that has a valve, because that's what's going to make it a continent reservoir rather than a continuous drainage like an ileal conduit. So you fashion this whole thing with a valve at the end and you pull that through to the abdomen. And then 3 to 4 times a day you put a catheter through that hole, you pass that valve, and then you empty that pouch full of urine. And as with the neobladder, those ureters are connected to that pouch. And you catheterize that valve about 3 to 4 times a day. There are pros and cons to each of these, and I want to go over that in another video. I hope this was educational.